Hello, this is our discussion for the homework assignment, What I Know, and we're going to be talking about the interview that we did with Stacy's mom. So the first question is, who's the interview?
So that was my mom. Her name is Anna. So yeah.
Question 2, what was the reason you chose to interview the selected person? So for the assignment, we had to have 3 separate criteria. Like the first criteria, they had to be 20 years older, they had to be of a different race or ethnicity, and they could have a disability, different gender, things like that, but we had to fill in 3 of those. So
Yeah, so my mom filled, she was 20 years older. From Brianna, she was a different ethnicity, and she had disability, she has a chronic illness, and her primary language is Spanish.
So for question 3, what barriers did your interviewee have to overcome? So one of the things that Anna had to overcome when she moved from the Dominican Republic to America is the language barrier, because learning English was hard, and even now, even though she's very good at English, she has an accent, which makes it hard for people who don't understand her accent to communicate, and sometimes it is frustrating because when she's trying to persuade her message, a lot of people don't understand what she's trying to say, and it gets frustrating at times.
Yeah, and she also talked about some of the discrimination that she's faced throughout her life, just because since she lives in a community now that is primarily white, when people see someone who's of a different color, they automatically think oh, they're Mexican or they're illegal. So she also had to face that challenge throughout her life.
Next question, question 4. When you read this assignment, why did you select this specific person?
So I guess she was the first person that I thought about that fit the criteria when we saw it on the board. And I guess I kind of thought that she would have a different approach or perspective on these kinds of topics, because I don't know, I was here when I was really young, but she came to the States when she was in her 30s, and her life was just kind of set in the Dominican Republic, so I thought it would have a new perspective.
Yeah, and I personally wanted to work with Stacy because after I heard she was working with her mom, I knew it'd be something much different from what I know, and it would be really cool to learn about someone who's much different than I am and expand the things that I personally don't understand. For question 5, were you surprised by their story? So like I said, I personally couldn't relate because my story is much different than Anna's story. So I was very surprised by a lot of the tribulations she had to go through, but at the same time, my family is also immigrants from Belarus. So in a way, it was also kind of similar because my mom and dad also had to go through a language barrier, and a lot of people were very discriminatory against them because they were immigrants as well.
Yeah, and also, well, I knew a lot about my mom's story, but there were some things that we normally won't talk about. Just when she told me she always showed her passport and stuff around instead of her driver's license when she went to the airport. Just little things like that normally don't come up in a normal conversation.
Yeah. Question 6. Which question had the strongest response? So I think one of the strongest questions that had a good response is one of my follow-up questions when I asked Anna how she dealt with the discrimination she went through. And her response was that when she was in the DR, there was a lot of different people, there was a lot of diversity, so she was raised to be very inclusive of all types of people, and I really respected that because that is something she took away when she moved here, and she was able to not be fazed by the discriminatory things that people were doing to her because she stuck by her morals.
Yeah, I agree.
Question 7. How does the interviewee identify?
Okay, so she's a female woman. She's 50 years old. She identified herself as Christian, and she has a chronic illness, which is lupus, and her primary language was Spanish.
Okay, question 8. Has the interviewee dealt with hate speech before?
Yeah, she said that. Well, she said that she dealt with discrimination when she tried to go places or talk to people, especially over the phone, and it was just very difficult to like get her point across is because of a kind of like language barrier, and she would face like hate speech because people wouldn't want to try to like converse or try to like talk it out to, I don't know, get the conversation moving. So yeah.
Okay. Question 9. Do you see your interviewee differently after completing the interview? So personally, I didn't know much about Anna before the interview besides the 3 aspects that we had to fulfill, which was that she was 20 years older, she's from the Dominican Republic, and that she had a disability. But after doing the interview, I have so much more respect and knowledge about her, and it really opened my eyes to like the struggles and tribulations you have to go through if you have a disability and how you overcome these things. And not only that, just having to come over like the tribulations of being from a different country.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there were some things, like I said, like my mom and I don't normally talk about, so I kind of got a new like perspective on the things that she had to deal with when she was living up here in the States.
Yeah. So the final question, question 10, has your view of barriers to communication, culture, and diversity been altered?
I would say that it has. I think that it was kind of interesting to see how someone just faces with like all of these different barriers with their culture and diversity, and how every person just has like a different story and a different way that they deal with these barriers.
Yeah, I agree. Although I knew that a lot of people from different backgrounds had like tribulations when they're around different people, like after hearing a personal story that is different than my own family, it really did open to my eyes that these things happen to a lot of people, and it's it happens often, and it's things that people in general have to get over.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's all. Thank you.
Bye.